Hello, welcome back to another fantasy football video. Hope everyone is doing fantastically well. Here today with a Game Week 3 wildcard. Now, Game Week 3 is a very popular time to be hitting that wildcard after we've had a few weeks of information on what players are particularly performing well and what players aren't. The likes of Neto and Bailey not having the greatest of starts, whereas the likes of Martinelli, Jesus, Reece James, all performing extremely well in the first two game weeks. It also allows us to hop onto some price rises and increase our squad value. If you are new around here, please don't forget to hit that subscribe button, hit the like button, it really does help me out. Without further ado, let's get straight on into it. So you can see here that I've gone for the 5 at the back. I think it's probably the best way to go, particularly at this part of the season, with a lot of the top clubs having very good fixtures and also having extremely good defences. In terms of who is in the 5 at the back, we've gone for Sanchez, Trent, Reece James, Cancelo, Koulibaly and Gabriel. All players from particularly strong defences. You can see there we've gone for the double up of the Chelsea defence. I think it's going to provide very good value going forward. Now, in terms of the first player we're going for is Robert Sanchez of Brighton. Brighton performing quite nicely in the first two fixtures, picking up a win and a draw. Robert Sanchez is the 5th highest scoring goalkeeper at the minute, with Brighton actually having the 3rd best expected goals conceded against so far this season, which effectively means they've been the 3rd best defence so far this season. And with Brighton only having Liverpool out of the quote sort of top 4 or 5 teams in their next 10 fixtures, I think Robert Sanchez provides very good value at that 4.5 million mark. Then the next defender we're taking a look at is Trent Alexander-Arnold from Liverpool. Now, obviously, I'm making this and Trent has actually played in the second game week, so we don't know what his total score for game week 2 heading into game week 3 is going to be. For now, with Trent, it is definitely a hold for me, with his effective ownership being pretty high, and also with how poor United are playing, you're definitely going to want him for that game. It will take another few game weeks of blanks for me to start considering getting Trent out, but for now, in a wild card, I'd still definitely be having Trent in. However, moving on to a player that has been performing particularly well over the last 3 weeks, and that is Reece James of Chelsea. Some people were getting a little bit worried before the Spurs game that he was going to play in that right centre-back position and wasn't going to get particularly far forward. However, proved a lot of people wrong, got himself very far forward and even managed to grab a goal. Would have picked up a 10-pointer in that game had Kane not scored in the 96th minute. I mean, absolute scenes in that game. It's quite funny to see the after stuff with Thomas Tuchel and Conte. But anyway, I think it's one of those sort of no-brainer picks that you just don't even have to think about. He just goes straight on in that at 6 million. Could he outscore Trent this season? Then another player who's really proving his value at the minute, and that's João Cancelo of Manchester City. Not only keeping a clean sheet in the game against Bournemouth, but even managed to pick him up a little tidy assist as well, grabbing some bonus points. If not, the assist was a little lucky with the ball deflecting off of Jefferson Lerma into his own net, but hey ho, they all count from an FPL perspective. They have Newcastle away in their 3rd match, which I think is going to be their toughest fixture so far. Newcastle have started the league pretty well this year, but Manchester City are just clear of any other team so far this season. Their expected goals against has been 0.3 in the first 2 games. That is absolutely absurd. They're the only team that has kept it below 1. And Crystal Palace and Liverpool, who both still have a game, who both still have to play, are above 1 as well. So it sort of just shows how well Manchester City are defending. Now, with saying that, you can see that I have only gone for the one Manchester City defender. You could move this team or jiggle this team about a little bit, which I will come on to discuss, in order to get the likes of maybe an Edison or even a Kyle Walker to give you that double up on Manchester City defence, as they are so solid. Then moving on to a man who's got an absolute screamer against Spurs yesterday is Koulibaly. I mean, we can't really be expecting him to score goals like that every single week, but it does show that he does have some threat from set pieces. And with defenders, you know, the first thing we are looking for is obviously, are they going to keep a clean sheet? Because that is the basis for all of their points. But then we're looking at, do they have any kind of attacking potential? And Koulibaly definitely showed that in the Spurs game. Chelsea looking like a reasonably solid defence so far this season. And with Reece James and Koulibaly being 6 and 5.5 mil respectively, I think that the double up on Chelsea defence is going to pay dividends up until we get that wild card for the World Cup. Then finally finishing off our defensive back 5 is Gabriel of Arsenal. Now, you could argue maybe the likes of Zinchenko or even Saliba are potentially better options. With Gabriel, for me, it's just the safety. We've seen Zinchenko being subbed off around the 70th minute in both Game Week 1 and Game Week 2. Could Kieran Tierney be lined up to start potentially against Bournemouth? You can argue that potentially subbing Zinchenko off in the 75th minute each game is actually going to be a benefit, because actually once you hit that 60th minute point and they do have a clean sheet, it's almost better if they do get taken off just so they get it locked in. But either way, that being said, you can sort of swap between Zinchenko, Saliba, Gabriel, and I all think they'll do particularly well. Their fixtures going forward look very nice. Bournemouth away, then Fulham at home, and Aston Villa at home. And Arsenal, not quite as good of a defence as the likes of Chelsea, Liverpool, Man City, but they're still pretty solid. And if you can have that as your last defender, I'd definitely be going for that. Then taking a look at our midfield. Now, as you can see here, we've gone for the 3 in midfield. There is potential of maybe going for a third attacker. We'll discuss later on who you could bring in and what you can do to move that around. But for now, we've gone for Martinelli, Salah, and Gundogan. Gundogan, I wanted to put in here as just like a little bit of a different pick. We see a lot of people picking and choosing between the 8 million, so I just wanted to highlight Gundogan as a potential option. Martinelli, obviously performing very well so far this season. And Salah, obviously not playing against Crystal Palace yet so far, but still looking like a must-have. So the first midfielder, Martinelli, plays Bournemouth away the next game. His price has already gone up to 6.2 million, scoring 2 goals in the first 2 and picking up 8 points apiece in each of Game Week 1 and Game Week 2. It's a very nice cheap way into that Arsenal attack. It seems as though he's now going to just be playing week in, week out. I mean, how can you bench him when he's looking as good as he is? Definitely one to hop on early. You can easily see his price going up to 6.5 million, even pushing up to 7 million if he does continue to bag goals. And playing against a Bournemouth team who don't look particularly good defensively, he could quite comfortably go and haul in this game as well. So Martinelli looking like a very, very solid pick going forward. For that price, you could maybe only argue the likes of Rodrigo is competition. He's looked very good so far this season. Pascal Gross, you can throw his name into the hat. He scored a brace in the opening game. Looks like he's going to get penalties now that Maupay has left. But I think for now, we're going with Martinelli. Plays for a better team than the other 2 options and arguably has better fixtures as well. Then moving on to the main man himself, and that is Mohamed Salah. Obviously playing against Manchester United in Game Week 3. I think he's going to be a captain for me in that game, to be honest, because Man United are looking so poor. We obviously don't know his Game Week 2 points because they haven't played Crystal Palace yet. But Salah, as always, just seems like a pretty must-have player. If you're not going to captain him, you need to at least have him in your team. Otherwise, you're going to drop massively when he inevitably does haul. And yeah, Salah, great option. Not really much more to say than he is a must-have, and will be going into my wildcard draft every single day of the week. The next main man, we've gone for Ilkay Gundogan. Managed to pick up a goal against Bournemouth and pick up 10 points as well, with Bernardo Silva likely to leave pretty soon, heading off to Barcelona. And Ilkay Gundogan also most recently been named club captain for Manchester City. That doesn't necessarily mean, he's guaranteed to start every week, but it definitely doesn't put him in any worse of a position. He was picking up some extremely good positions in that Bournemouth game, reminiscent of last season when he went for a patch of just absolutely smashing it. If we get that Ilkay Gundogan back, he will be a must-have for 7.5 million. Obviously, at that kind of price range, it's a highly contentious price bracket with a lot of players like Kulusevski, Maddison, Saka, Luis Diaz, all fighting it out for that spot. Now, with the way that I have built this team, you do actually have 0.5 million left in the bank. So if you fancied getting any of the likes of Luis Diaz, Saka, Maddison, Kulusevski, then you could actually just plop them in there. If you wanted Saka, you could change Gabriel to a Walker, which actually brings us on to our 2 forwards. And that is Gabriel Jesus and Erling Haaland. Gabriel Jesus absolutely smashing it in that game against Leicester, picking up a brace and a brace of assists. Could have potentially even got a hat-trick as well. He was playing so well, and that first goal was an absolute delight to watch. 21 points, obviously, so far in the entirety of the season. Bournemouth away in the next game, and then Fulham and Aston Villa. As we have mentioned, Arsenal's fixtures over the next few game weeks. Jesus looks like the most must-own player, if that's even a thing. But yeah, Jesus has to be in the team. With ownership approaching 75%, you just cannot go without the man. And then finally finishing off the team, Erling Haaland of Manchester City. Now, he didn't look as good in the Bournemouth game. Actually only registered 2 passes. One of them was a kickoff and 8 touches in the entirety of the game. Haaland showed the potential that he does have against West Ham United and is one of the highest scoring attackers so far in the game. Now, arguably, Newcastle is going to be their toughest fixture so far. Newcastle have looked particularly good in the first 2 game weeks, managing to not concede a goal. So it'll be very interesting to see how Manchester City do fare against a pretty strong Newcastle team. But just in terms of ownership and what you could lose out on if you don't own Haaland, I'd definitely be putting him into your team. So as we alluded to earlier, this team comes to a value of 99.5 million. If you want to upgrade the likes of Gundogan, for example, to one of the other 8 million midfielders, it allows you to upgrade Sanchez, if you so desire, to a 5 million goalkeeper. Nick Pope and Sarr performed particularly well in the first 2 game weeks. If you want as well, you could look to go for an Ivan Toney as that third striker. Play the 5-2-3, for example. Drop Gundogan down, and that would actually give you an extra million spare, so you could say go Sanchez up to Edison, and then you'd have an extremely powerful defence. And Ivan Toney, with the fixtures that Brentford have got, looks like he could be very good going forward. Now, in terms of just completing the team, what players are we going to put on the bench? Who are going to be our dud options? So I think for the midfielder spots, it looks like De Silva from Brentford is the player to go for, with his price going up to 4.6 million. Andreas Pereira of Fulham still in there for me. I know he did get a little bit of a knock in that Wolves game, but Scott Parker has come out and said that it's nothing particularly serious, and I'm actually considering starting him against Brentford in game week 3. And then in terms of the third attacker position, you know, you could go for like a Luke Plange, a Greenwood, for like that player. Don't think about it too much. Just make sure it doesn't block you from making future transfers from teams that you might want in the future. Then the second goalkeeper spot, it seems like Danny Ward is just a standout option. Only scoring 1 point so far this season, in fact, but he is a playing goalkeeper for that 4 million midfielder spot, which we just haven't really had before. So that is how I would complete the team. If you are thinking about wildcarding this week, please do drop a comment with how your drafts are going so far. If you enjoyed the video, please don't forget to hit the like button, hit the subscribe button if you're new around here, and I'll catch you in a bit. See ya.